Welcome back to the Daily Rumble, guys. I have a special guest today. He is a poet and a scholar of being an awesome human being. So, Kanan Salam, welcome to the show, brother. I appreciate you being here today. How are you, my friend?
Mashallah, you had me a little nervous when you mentioned the word scholar. I'm constantly telling people that I'm not a scholar and I'm but a poet. But I like the way you worded that, mashallah. I'm very well, alhamdulillah. It's lovely to be with you. How are you?
I'm doing really good, mashallah. Over here in the United States, we have a lot going on right now with our current president. There's a lot of hate speech. The hate groups are really feeling emboldened. And one of the biggest slogans over here that they like to put out is that London has fallen in regards to the Muslim population and the growth of Islam in England and in Europe as a whole. And I kind of wanted to get your response to that. Like, what do you think that the growth of Islam in England, you being a Muslim revert, and living there, is it a net negative or a net positive for England? Because England is, to my understanding, I've never been there, but it's very based in multiculturalism.
Yes, it most certainly is. I would not say, I can't say if it has a negative or positive impact on Britain. What I do know is that I was born here and I went to school with brown people, with white people, and with black people. I went to school with Muslims, Sikhs, Hindus, Christians, and Muslims have always been a huge part of Britain. You know, the dinner ladies, Muslims, when we go to our general practitioner to get our injections or to have something checked up that is hurting, the lady is usually brown. Only yesterday, last night, I was in the hospital till very early hours in the morning with my mother. And the doctor who was attending, seeing to us, her name was Amina. And so I don't think it's a thing of Islam taking over Britain. I think South Asians have been here since 1947. That consists of Indians, Pakistanis, and Bengalis. And they have had a major contribution to this nation, its medical system, its educational system. And so Muslims being here has never been a bad thing. Yes, there is an awful, dreadful, false narrative pushed against us. And I won't lie to you, we do see it. I was with my wife shopping in our local superstore when a very horrible man said to us, "You guys don't belong here. You know, get out of my country. You're not meant to be here. Your wife is a raghead and you look like you're about to go boom. So, come out of Morrison's. You shouldn't have been here." But we were born here and we've had a great impact on this country. And the news pushed this false narrative against us. And there is a very loud but minority of people who latch on to these lies. And I don't know why. Maybe they're bored. Maybe they're looking for somebody to blame for their unemployment. I'm not sure. But it is a real thing here. But majority of people understand that those who are angry with Muslims, they don't speak for Britain. So living here is, it's cool. I am a poet, speak on Islam, and I spread Islam, that which I know and love of it, with non-Muslims at huge events, huge poetry events, 200 plus people. And honestly, not a single person has a negative thing to say of me. However, they do have a lot of questions, you know? Is it your wife's decision to wear a hijab? Are you allowed to touch pigs? Are you scared of pigs? So we are fighting a huge power platform, the media, but they're not doing very well. It's fine in Britain. It's not the 80s. We don't have people walking around looking for Muslims to beat up. Maybe somewhere, sometimes, but there's not a war here. I speak Islam unfiltered, unapologetic, and I don't I don't cover it in glitter. Okay. People, if I was if that were the case in Britain, I think people would be punching me in the face a lot more often than they do. And they don't. People are very nice to me. But so they're the same way they're lying to us at telling us that the media tells the people of Britain Islam is a problem here, it's taking over the country. And they do. There's like GB News. There is some platforms that are very biased that create lies and false narratives against us. But it doesn't really seem to be working because the lie is consistently changing and the truth always remains the truth. Sometimes people get bored of the lies.
And I think a lot of people start to see through him too. I mean, if you look at it, we hear that all the time here in the United States. Oh, Islam is taking over the United States, but they fail to complain about the fact that the Zionists have already taken over the United States. They don't complain about that. They don't complain about the fact that they're trying to pass laws to make it illegal in the United States, which is very staunch on the First Amendment right to free speech. But they're trying to literally pass laws saying that if you criticize a foreign country called Israel, you will go to jail, you will face fines, you
It's
will
the same
have your
here.
business taken. Yeah,
It's
right.
the same
So
here.
why aren't they complaining about that? Because you don't see that about Muslims. You don't see laws saying that if you criticize Saudi Arabia, you'll go to jail or you'll lose your business or you'll be fined into oblivion. But if you criticize Israel, you will. And so I always think that's funny that they have this narrative that Islam is taking over, and especially like in England. And I keep seeing on all my social media feeds of all of these, not even Muslims, but just regular, Christian English people being taken off to jail for simply criticizing that foreign country.
Exactly. Bro, I attend protests often that I speak and march at, and 95% of the attendees at the protests, they are non-Muslim people. We see grandmothers, mothers, aunties, 60, 70 years old plus, being picked up off of their feet and dragged away from the protest like an item, not like a human being. And so a majority of Britain is awake to this.
Yeah. And I think that's really happening here. We just had a Zionist agitator here named Jake Lang. He is Jewish, pretending to be a Muslim or pretending to be a Christian crusader, trying to stir up hate and violence and all of this stuff.
And we have Tommy Robinson.
Yeah, and you guys that like we have that version over here, and but you know what? I'll say this. For some reason, it seems like Tommy has a much bigger influence and stronger following in England than this guy Jake does, because Jake called for a crusade in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and about 5 people showed up for him, and about 2,000 people showed up against him, and he got a little bit roughed up in that. But the funny thing about it was that a Black American and then a Muslim American and then a trans man, woman, whatever they call themselves, American, were the ones who saved him. And those are the three groups that he talks the most stuff about. And so after they saved him from a bunch of white, liberal, non-Muslim people who are ready to lynch him, he goes on another right-wing nut job crazy person podcast, and he doubles down and says that, yeah, they pretended to try and save me, but they were really trying to pickpocket me and steal my stuff as they were trying to fake protect me. And it's like, man, you may have not even made it out of there alive if it wasn't for a black guy, a Muslim guy, and a trans person, right? And then you
Yeah.
go and you spread all of this hatred and stuff. So again, it's obvious that you have these influencers who are bought and paid for by a certain country. They visit that country more than they are in their own country. Like Tommy Robinson, for example, seems to be in Israel more than he is in England. So if he's so English nationalist, why don't you stay home and fix your country? Why are you in a foreign country so much?
Speak about, these are our neighbors. These are our taxi drivers. These are the gentlemen that work in restaurants. These are people that work in hospitals, ambulances. So it doesn't matter what you say of us, it's evident. In the UK, there is a statistic. A Muslim is 4 times more likely to give charity than a non-Muslim, right?
Same here.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
these are facts, and people are not stupid. When I first moved, I've just moved home, and I've just moved into an area that is predominantly white, and that's okay. When I first moved here, one lady even came up to me and she said, are you the new person moving in? I said, yes, I am. And she said, are you moving in on your own or are you with people? Who are you with? And she began to question me. And I said, I'm with my wife and my two daughters. And she said, oh, okay. You know, and she was a little bit confused. And then she felt the need to inform me that they have a communal group chat on WhatsApp on the road and they discuss many different things. But she was very hesitant to invite me to the group chat. She just letting me know that we're watching. After being here for a week or so, uh, they are love to converse with me. They love to ask me how I am. They smile because they notice, "Oh, this Muslim that just moved here, he keeps taking out the old woman's bin next door to him. Why isn't he planting something in there that will go boom?" I will tell
Yeah.
you why. Because we follow the sunnah of the beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he teaches us to be kind. And when we do move to a land that is not Islamic and doesn't follow the Sharia, we are taught to obey the laws of that land. And as a revert, I understand how these people were thinking. I understand because before I was Muslim, I saw a man with a big beard, for example, Mufti Menk, and I thought to myself, my goodness, he's a little scary. If I was walking down a alleyway at night and I saw Mufti Menk in all black with his big beard and his thing, I would think, oh, this guy is like a ghoul or something, right? But when now I'm a Muslim and I understand how it works and I understand that many people are not perfect, but the religion is, when we follow the Sunnah Act, they love us. Why wouldn't you? I'm walking down the street, I see something that could harm somebody, and I move it out the way. People bear witness, you know? When there is an elder woman walking with shopping bags, I help her with her bags. People are not blind. The heart is blind. But even the heart, just like any other organ, it can heal. And that's what we're doing. And we have to see the wisdom behind things that happen in the world. When Palestine is burning, when children are going to sleep to the sound of bombs rather than the sound of lullabies and bedtime stories, it has an effect on people. People are waking up because we Muslims are not burning down buildings that are making money and sending it to Israel to kill our little brothers and sisters. We are not finding Jewish people and beating them up randomly. We're not. We are peacefully protesting. They silence our words, so we speak in poems. They can't stop the Truth Act because it's so obvious. In London, there is an area just past Seven Sisters in North London, and it is a Jewish area. You don't see no one there but Jews. They have their own ambulance. They have their own police. They have their own hospital. They have their own taxi service. My goodness, they even have their own SIM cards with their own phone line. Okay? And if we Muslims were that which they say of us, we are not cowards, bro. We are men. Our women are leaders. Our women are informers, teachers. They raise generations. If we wanted, we could go there and we could make a statement and leave a stain, but we don't because we believe in something much bigger than us. We believe in justice. We believe in a creator that sees that which we do not and deals with situations which we cannot deal with. And we leave it in his hands. And because of what's happened in Palestine, people's hearts are changing. And why aren't these Muslims are angry, but why are they not punching walls? So these sorts of things, yes, it's real. Yes, Islamophobia is rising in Britain and in the US. Yes, it's because I'm Muslim. Yes, you judge me because I'm Muslim. Yes, you write my story before I've even had my say because I'm Muslim. But guess what? It's also that I don't react because I'm Muslim. That I give you time to ponder on what you said with great faith that maybe you will reconsider your thoughts and your damaged heart and understand. You're spitting at me and I'm just leaning back. I'm not spitting back. People are changing, you know, and I think it will get worse before it gets better, but I think it's heading in a good direction. And listen, when something is of benefit, they will always tell you it's bad. Okay. Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he said, towards the end of times, they will tell you that fire is water and water is fire. You know, just like here in the UK very recently, we found out that the farmers, their the things that they're planting, carrots, potatoes, whatever it may be, is fertilized with human feces. Okay. We found out about 30 years ago that the tap water that we drink in the UK has a very high rate of fluoride within it. If you look at toothpaste, it writes contains fluoride. Do not swallow.
Yeah.
Somewhere very small, it will say can cause death in long term. So in poorer areas in Britain, the fluoride rate is high. When you go to a rich area in Britain, like Chelsea, the fluoride rate is very low. This government has never loved us. They've never wanted that which is best for us. Organic food in Britain is quite expensive, but you can buy a pint of milk that will give you cancer and kill you for £1.50. Okay. But if
Yeah.
you don't want to die, you have to spend £3. Now consider how difficult it is to live here. If something is good, they will tell you it is bad. If something is bad, they give it to you for 20 bloody pence.
Yeah.
Come on. Ibuprofen. Why are these medicines so accessible, so affordable? Because they want you to take these things because they know that it will kill you, right? But something that is good for you, an organic avocado, £2 for one avocado. My daughter yams a whole avocado on her own. But people can't afford to live like this. So my point is, Islam is of benefit, so they paint it red. Okay, and I'll just elaborate a little bit. What does the world run on? Money. Okay. Alcohol industry makes billions of pounds a year. Islam comes along and says alcohol is haram, forbidden. The husband drinks, he cheats on his wife, they divorce, the children grow up in a broken structure, broken home, and they may continue that with their own family. They make money off the pornography industry, the sex industry. Islam comes along and says haram. They paint Islam red. They make money off gambling, okay? Games of chance that when you lose everything. Islam comes along and says haram. They paint Islam red. Okay, so if everybody became Muslim and Islam was understood for the beauty which it contains, people would not take out mortgages because they would say, hold on, they're robbing me, but it's just contracted, right? It doesn't mean it's okay. Boxing, fighting is not okay, but because it's contracted, they're fighting. But if somebody dies, it's still murder, right? He still
Yeah.
killed him, right? Like he killed somebody. Just because it's in writing, I'm giving you this money, but then you must allow me to rob you. It doesn't mean it's okay. If everyone became Muslim and stopped mortgages, interest, gambling, alcohol, nudity, the world would be a much better place. And those Jews, those Zionists, those very evil people, those Zionist people, they wouldn't have control over us like they do, right? So they have to paint Islam red. And that's why in the States, you got people walking around saying, oh, that dirty Muslim, oh my God. And then here in the UK, you've got them going, oh, that bloody dirty Muslim, yeah, he's scared of pigs. Because they want them to hate us so people don't accept Islam so they can continue controlling us. Yeah. The Zionists, and I won't speak about all Jews because I don't know these people, they call us goyim. That translates to human cattle. They literally believe that we are created to serve them, to wipe their bottoms. And here in the UK, bro, that synagogue attack in 2005 in Manchester, they said his name was something jihad. Why do they keep using this word jihad and pulling it in these people's names? As a Muslim, I'm struggling to believe that that was even his name. Because I think recently there was another terrorist attack and they said his name is something jihad. Ahmed Jihad. Bilal Jihad. Why has everybody got jihad in it? Where do we find this? And then the British man that was abroad that then was brought back to the UK and arrested for terrorist charges. The media said that he was internationally widely known as Sami Jihadi or something like that, right? They are giving us these names. They are painting us in a certain color. So people may see us that way, but they're not seeing us that way because we Muslims will not fail in continuing the traditions of the Prophet Muhammad. So if you come to my house and you leave animal feces on my doorstep, I will clean it. Okay? And if you do it again, I will clean it again. But I will not go to your door and attack you, because I do not just represent me. I represent this. I represent this. I represent 1.5 billion people or something like that. And we Muslims are aware of this. Okay? And so let them do what they got to do. Allah has already told us it will get worse before it gets better. As a Muslim, my job is to attain patience and try to share a deeper understanding with those who have been lied to. Because just like you and myself, we were both lied to, right? I used to call people the P word. I used to think they smell like this guy smells like curry. Why doesn't he shower? Now I'm a Muslim. I say, how fortunate is that brother that every time he leaves his home, he smells like food. He's blessed.
Yeah.
There is people around the world, let alone smelling like food. Actually, they don't eat food, right? So being a Muslim is beautiful. And I can't wait for more people like yourself and myself to embrace that.
I think I mean, even if you look at the staunch white Christian nationalist movement here in the United States, it is different than what you have with Tony Robinson over there and his ilk, where over here they are waking up. I just had a young man on my show last week named Jeb Ba, and he was at a Turning Point USA event, and he asked a very big right-wing, very pro-Israel podcaster named Glenn Beck a very poignant question when he asked him, what do we get by supporting Israel? Why do we keep supporting Israel? They bombed the USS Liberty. They just take all of our money. They get us involved in all these wars. And what are we actually getting back out of this? And Glenn Beck was just frustrated, and he could not answer. And then they asked him, are you America first or are you Israel first? And he couldn't answer. And so when I was talking to Jeb, he's a very staunch, young white Christian man in college right now. And I asked him, I said, listen, I know on the left here in the United States, the support for Israel is almost non-existent in the youth. Like anybody under the age of 30 on the left, not supporting them. But what about the right? What about guys like you and in your age range? Is anybody you know supporting Israel? And he was like, absolutely not. Everybody in my age range is anti-Israel on the right, because we've woken up to the lie. The nation of Israel that exists today is not the Israel mentioned in the Bible. And we've woken up to that it's just propaganda that's been forced onto our parents and our grandparents, but we're not buying it anymore because we see what they're doing is so anti-God that we're not going to follow them anymore. So I think, he even said, like, there's no reason for us to fight Muslims. There's no reason for us to hate Muslims. We may not want to live around them. Maybe we want an all Christian community, and that's what we're fighting for, but we don't want to fight Muslims either. And I think that's huge that we've reached this turning point now where people are waking up that the corporate elite, and this isn't to bang on Jews or anything like that, because there's a lot of Jews who are at these protests protesting against Israel. So it's a Zionist thing. It's a corporate elitist thing. It's this billionaire thing where they want to control the people. And in order to do that, the oldest tactic ever is divide and conquer. So if you can get the everyday average American to hate his neighbor because he's a Muslim, or hate his neighbor because he's a Hindu, or hate his neighbor because of this, or hate his neighbor because of the color of his skin, as though a white person actually somehow chose to be born white, or a black person chose to be born black.
Yeah,
None
yeah.
of us had a choice in that matter. That God decided, you're going to be this, you're going to be short, you're going to be tall, you're going to be skinny, you're going to be fat,
Yes.
you're going to be born blind, you're going to be born with eyes,
So
right?
that we may learn from each other.
Yeah, exactly. So I think a lot of people are waking up, and yes, I agree. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, in terms of whenever you have dying empires, they tend to get really harsh on their own peoples until they finally collapse. I mean, if you look at Mussolini, if you look at Hitler, if you look at any of these people, when everything was crumbling down around them, they became even more brutal to their own people. And I think as these billionaires and the Zionists start to lose control, they're going to try and become more repressive and use these fear tactics. We just had the Attorney General of the United States. This is the top cop in the United States, Pam Bondi, at an Israeli event, not an American event, not an American Jewish event, an Israeli event, bragging how they are cracking down on Americans for being anti-Israel. Like, that's absolutely insane here. And it's why so many people are waking up to this, and they're seeing this. The youth see it. They're not stupid. And they're seeing this even on the right. They see Pam Bondi get up there, who's supposed to be a right-wing attorney general, basically pontificating for a foreign country. And they don't like that.
They do that here, but people, Israel, the United Kingdom is Israel's chubby little brother that it uses and abuses, but people don't recognize that here. I think you guys have noticed that how they use the United States, right?
Yeah.
Why have
Yeah. Definitely waking up.
maybe you can share some light on it? Why do you think the UK is so in denial of this?
I think you guys have much stricter controls on the media there, where here it's basically a free for all. So anybody can get on TV and say what they want and nobody can stop them. Anybody can get on social media and say what they want and nobody can stop them. Now, the social media apps are trying to crack down on that, and they're restricting videos, taking videos down. But as of right now, you cannot take anyone to jail for saying, I don't like Israel. You can't take anyone to jail for saying, stop the genocide in the United States. Whereas it seems like in England, and again, I've never been to your country, so I don't know, but just from what I see, it seems like the authorities crack down on that, and your mainstream media doesn't seem to. It's sort of like if you look at the BBC, for example, they are so biased towards Israel, it's absolutely insane. Every time I see a BBC report on what's going on in Gaza, they might throw a few snippets out there about Gaza and the suffering, but then they always make an excuse at the end of it for why Israel needs to do this, for why Israel needs to exist, yada yada yada.
About people, that's what I'm saying. People are not stupid, Ak.
Yeah,
People are not stupid. They've got social media, and unfortunately for the government, they are seeing these children limbless. They're seeing children starving to death and begging for help. And then they're also seeing these brainless Zionist soldiers that are out there, these IDF fools that are just humiliating these poor people, you know, defecating on them, raping them, wearing women's underwear. And so people see black and white. Like, that's why it's not working. And also in the States, I haven't been to America, but from what I've seen of police officers and those that have some sort of power, they seem to be quite angry and quite hands-on. Whereas in the UK, at a protest, a police officer will approach protesters and say, if you do not leave the protest, and if you do not get rid of your sign that writes Free Palestine, I'm going to have to arrest you. And the police officer gives the person time to ask, do you think what you're doing is correct? Do you think that I'm doing something bad? Would you arrest me if I was protesting for Israel? And so the
yeah,
police officer doesn't start roughing them up and beating them up. He actually displays a facial expression of shame, looks down, stays silent. That which he feels really does reflect on his face. And so uh, it's hard for them to control how we feel here because the feds aren't just shooting people,
yeah.
you know?
I
And
think, like in the United States, our police force has become militarized over the past 30 years. And part of that is we send almost every single police department sends a certain amount of their officers to Israel for training. And so they brag about the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League here. Jason Greenblatt, the head of it, was bragging about how they are spying on US citizens, telecommunications, social media, etc., which the ADL is not a government organization. So how they're even spying on our private text messages without going to jail, I don't understand. I think they need to be investigated by the FBI. But he bragged that they are the biggest trainer of law enforcement in the United States. So you have this very pro foreign country organization in the United States that is literally training our police officers. And I think that's why here in the United States, you see a lot of police who are hyper aggressive against pro Palestinian protesters, but then will literally protect the pro Israel protesters. And you see it time and time again where they won't take the pro Israel protesters, even if they get violent, even if they start destroying property, they won't take them to jail. But if you're just standing there with a sign, they'll just run up, punch you, tackle you. You see the same thing happening in Germany, where the German police are just violently attacking these peaceful protesters for Palestine. And I think again, because the Germans in the IDF have a very strong relationship in their military system in their police force. Same thing that's happened here. I mean, we've always had a problem with our police departments here. They don't do civic training, right? So, for example, if you ever go to Singapore, it's kind of like what you would see in London with the police there. Most of the Singaporean police are not armed, and even if they are armed, they literally it's illegal for them to touch their firearm unless somebody has a firearm and is shooting them or has a knife and is trying to stab them. Like if they just touch their firearm, they go to jail for that, right? And then their civic training when they're going through police training, like 90% of it is making sure that they are being polite even to a suspect of a crime, which they have very low crime over there, but they have to be extraordinarily polite and helpful because they are a public servant, right? They're there to serve the public. Over here, it's an unfortunate situation where the police get a badge and they feel like they are the judge, the jury, and the executioner. And it leads to a lot of problems. I think probably part of that has to do with a lot of police officers get shot and killed over here every year because we have more guns in the United States than we have people. So that inherently is going to make their job a little bit more stressful, but at the end of the day, they still need more civic training. So, yeah, I think we just have a big problem with police over here in regards to protests, particular. I mean, we see it with ICE that is just cracking down and being violent towards people. They just killed an American woman who was literally doing what she was told, which is go away. So she decides, okay, I'm going to drive away, and then a guy shoots her in the face 3 times and kills her, and now the government is protecting him. I wanted to get your opinion on extremism in Islam because we just seen in Kabul yesterday a horrific bombing of a Chinese restaurant in Kabul that is claimed by ISIS. And I think the irony here is ISIS makes a statement saying this is in retaliation of a Chinese oppression of Uyghur Muslims. But here's the problem: the Chinese restaurant was owned by a Uyghur Muslim.
My
And
God.
the one of the I don't know if it was the owner or one of the staff who died was a Uyghur Muslim, and 6 Afghan Muslims who were in the area also died in the bombing. And so we see ISIS never attacks Israel. Not a single documented case of an attack against Israel. They're actually inside Gaza now. There's a small group of them who are attacking Hamas. So, but they don't attack Israel. And then you have like this saying, like I don't agree with everything that the Taliban does. And I think over time the Taliban will implement things that are more accordance to the Sunnah, because some of the things they do is not. But even then, that is a Muslim government controlling a Muslim country, and you have this extremist group that everybody, like all of the right wing white nationalist people, like to throw at us, like you're all ISIS. You don't understand. ISIS kills 98% of its victims are Muslims, and they never attack Israel, right? So that's kind of the biggest question that we get thrown at all the time. How would you respond to the accusations of extremism in Islam?
I think mental health is a real thing. I think there are people out there that don't that aren't able to grasp the understanding of Islam. And before they got into be all Islamic, they weren't well already. I think there is people like that, of course. Of course, I also believe that there is a agenda pushed against us, and I don't think ISIS has anything to do with Islam. To be honest, like you said, they're mainly killing Muslims. I think they're probably just a bunch of CIA agents that are just assisting in creating this picture that Islam is a bad thing. I can't speak much on that. I'm not actually as into politics as some people would think. What I can speak on, Akia, is local Muslims being very careful with the things that they say. So, for example, there's a brother that lives in the UK. I won't mention his name because I had a conversation with him on the phone and he said that he will change his angle. But he was putting out these viral videos where he was going to churches that have now become masjids. And he would say, it used to be a church, not anymore. And this video went viral. And you had many reverts, new Muslims going to their camera, not anymore. And they're almost antagonizing, being sarcastic, making fun of the fact that churches are now becoming mosques. We're taking over. Now, what this does is it feeds the story, it proves them right. Okay. So as Muslims, we're not taking over your country. We're happy to be here. Violence is wrong. We have to be vocal. We have to speak against these things so they don't use us Muslims as evidence to say, no, they are right what they say about Muslims. Islamophobia will worsen if we play along with their story. We have to be the opposites and we have to always carry ourselves with good manners, adab, with being careful with our tongues. Even smiling breaks that barrier, bro. When I walk down the street and I know I'm about to walk past three elder white women and their granddaughter, I'm not going to stare at them and smile, but I'm, you know, Muslim, that's okay.
Yeah,
Not,
because they have a stereotype that, here comes this scary Muslim man who's gonna attack us. And then when you present a very bright, happy face of somebody that is not a threat or a danger, it disarms them from
yeah.
that. Yeah,
So
I totally agree.
one man said to me once, sarcastically, when my beard was a little bigger, whoa, that's a big beard. And he kind of looked at me like, and I responded with, you should have saw it last week. I had to trim it, but I kept getting my rice caught in it. And I laughed. And he went, "Ah," and I thought, yeah. I said, "Don't worry, I'm gonna grow it out again." And just breaking the ice and letting people know you're normal. It's very easy because we are angry, we are upset, we are oppressed, for God's sakes. It's very easy for us to fall into the trap of feeding into their story. It is. Bro, if every time I left my house, I spoke how I felt, people would think I'm a horrible person. Okay, because there's times I'm walking down the road and people won't even, it's a pathway for two people, and the guy's walking in the middle of it with his dog, and he's making sure that he doesn't move out of my way. Wants me to barge into him. But I don't. I stop and I say, "Oh, that's a lovely dog you got there. After you, sir." And he still gives me a dirty look. But guess what? That happens 3 times to him. One day he's going to turn around and say, "Let me make space for this Muslim brother because they're actually nice." You know? So we've got to be careful that from internally, we don't add to their narrative. Yes, there's ISIS. Yes, there's these different things. The truth will come out eventually. These people are not Muslims, man. They're not Muslims. To kill one person as if you have killed the whole of humanity. To save one person, the blood of a Muslim is more sacred than the Kaaba that they claim we walk around to worship. We don't worship a box. Okay? And it's just, yes, it's peak, Ak. It's actually a really horrible time to be alive. But as a Muslim, it's a wonderful time to be alive because we can turn around to our children one day and say, Baba, Babam, your daddy was part of the change. When people were calling us names, we smiled. When people threw stones at us, we built them homes. When people threw boiling water on us, we made wudu. We made them tea. Okay? When they threw flour at us, we made them biscuits. This is how we're going to change this. We will never change this by sitting here and saying, ISIS are not Muslims. I am Muslim. Muslims give charity. Muslims help people. They're lying. They're lying. No, we have to smile. We have to be gentle. What you do is amazing. What you do is great. But we don't need 500 of you. We need different people to show them that we're not all the same. When I do huge poetry events and there's so many people there, I go wearing this, I go wearing my phone, and I make sure I make jokes on stage. I make sure I smile at people. You know, like, for example, I said something once on stage and then I looked at the camera that was filming me and I said, please don't put that online or my wife won't cook for me for a week. And yes, it's funny, but it's informative. What does it tell people? He's not beating up his wife. The woman don't even bloody cook for him.
Yeah.
They think Muslims are oppressing women.
Yeah.
My money is her money. Her money is her money.
Yeah.
I'm her taxi driver, Ak. I'm sitting with you discussing this with you right now. When I go downstairs, I'm changing nappies, bro. I'm making dinner because I'm at home and it's duty upon me to take care of my family. So if my wife is tired, I will massage her feet. These are Muslims. Look at you, mashallah. Look how clean and fresh your skin is. Look how healthy you look, Allahumma barik. Look at your walls. Look at your home behind you. It's clean, hygienic. You wash your bottom after you defecate. You care about you, which allows you to care about others. The problem is people are angry and upset. So they try to blame other people for their upset and then anger. I'm not making much money from my job, mate, because all these Muslims are driving taxis. All these Muslims are serving kebab. Bro, if we weren't here, I'm tired, so I'm forgetting my words. But the system would crumble, Ak. If people weren't working jobs, the whole system would crumble. There is not enough British people in this. There's not enough English-born people in this country to keep it going. I don't know how it is in the States, but
Well, it's
anybody
the
in the
same
UK,
thing here. We have a massive labor crisis here. We don't have enough white people that will go and become plumbers, electricians, HVAC guys, carpenters. I'm a former contractor. I built homes, and literally, like I've told this story a million times. I would try to hire young white men in the United States. They would work for 2 weeks, get that first check, and then you never see them again. Whereas the Mexicans, they're there at 5:30 in the morning and staying until 8, 9 o'clock at night, and they only take one break, and that's for comida. That's just to eat lunch, and then that's it. And they will work literally 7 days a week. And so, yeah, we have the same problem here. If you were to deport every single Muslim, every single Mexican out of this country, the United States would become a third world country overnight because the infrastructure would crumble.
yeah, infrastructure. That's right. Yeah, damn right. Most certainly would. And there's a reason why there's so many non-English people in this country. Because in 1947, when they were conquering and dividing South Asia, which was India at the time, they divided it into three: India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. And then when they came back to the UK after dividing and conquering and making sure they own almost everything there, what did they do? They did not come back empty-handed. They came back with coffee, with all different things, and most importantly, they came back with humans to put them to work. Okay, so there's a reason why this country is so multicultural. In 1971, hundreds, Allahu Alam, God knows best, hundreds of thousands of Jamaican men came on ships. It's called the Windrush. And they wonder why there's so many Jamaican people here. And then they scream at them, Aki, they say, go home. Go where? His blood built Britain. Where should he go? Go
Yeah.
back to Jamaica. His granddad's been living it for time. You know, it's like,
We had the same thing here with the Chinese Americans, right? So the Chinese Americans built the railroad that basically built the United States. It's what created the continental United States from the East Coast to the West Coast. If we didn't have that Chinese labor, we wouldn't be the country that we are today. And then you have some white person whose ancestors didn't help build that railroad tell that Chinese person go back home. It's like, dude, I've been here since like 1800s. I've been here since the 1800s. Like I helped build my family built this railroad that you're getting all of your Walmart goods are coming off of those train cars from. Your fuel is transported across the country, and that's why you have gas at the gas stations, because my ancestors were out there dying by the thousands to build this railroad. So don't tell me to go home because I don't even speak Chinese and I've never been to China. right?
Exactly. Actually, they wouldn't have coffee if it weren't for a Muslim. They
Yeah,
wouldn't have the
exactly.
guitar if it weren't for a Muslim. They wouldn't have tools for surgery if it weren't for a Muslim. They wouldn't have a pen, they wouldn't have a book, and they wouldn't have travel by flight if it weren't for a Muslim. They wouldn't have hospitals, universities. They wouldn't have the necessities and the essentials to survive today if it weren't for Muslims. So when we say, is Islam taking over Britain? No, but it most certainly is helping Britain. Do you know what the national dish is of this country, UK? Chicken korma, a curry dish. What a joke. Your national dish is something you stole. So don't steal from me. And then don't steal my home. And then when I build a little house in the garden, tell me get out. When you invited my dad to live in your garden, and now I've been born in that garden, and you're treating me like a rat, trying to get
Yeah.
rid of me, it's absolutely ridiculous.
All you have to do is look at history to know what will happen. So, with Al Andalus, Spain, Muslim Spain, which was a Muslim country for 400 years, it was the pinnacle of science, of technology, of education. And then the Crusaders came in through King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. They united their forces, they attacked Spain, they slaughtered most of the Muslims. The Muslims who were able to get out fled to Morocco. The Jews consequently also followed the Muslims to Morocco because they'd rather live with Muslims and under Muslim rule than some crazy version of Christianity. And what happened to Europe after that? They went into the Dark Ages.
Right. So while we were bathing 5 times a day, they were scared of water. Exactly. We taught them hygiene, Akhi. They were dying because they were too scared to wash themselves. We gave them soap. To say that Muslims are taking over your country is ridiculous. We contribute and you steal from us. That is what's happening. We give, but it's not enough for you. You take more. We are so happy to just live, bro. Like I drink tea, I eat dried ass scones. I'm a British Muslim, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud to live in Britain. Oh, like I don't
It's your
understand.
home. Just like
Yeah,
me.
it's
I'm
home.
I'm a, I think sixth generation American, right?
Right.
My family's been here from almost the very beginning of the founding of this country. My family actually came over from Germany back when it was called Prussia, and they were indentured servants. So they actually had to sign a contract that they would work on a farm for free for 10 years to earn their freedom in exchange for the boat ride over to the United States. And so, my family put in blood, sweat, and tears, lost their lives, fought in the Civil War, fought in the Korean War, fought in the Vietnam War. And it's like, because of my religion, you're going to tell me to get out of America? First of all, the United States Constitution doesn't say anything about Jesus Christ or Christianity. Not one word. If the founders of this country, almost all of them were Freemason deists, they weren't even Christians,
Exactly,
right?
bro. The brother I mentioned earlier, he was doing these videos about churches becoming mosques. When I spoke to him on the phone, I said to him, inform people of the truth. The fact that these churches are becoming mosques is because the government is not funding them anymore. The reason why these seats in the church are cold and nobody's sitting there is because nobody's going.
Yeah.
It's not that we Muslims are taking over, it's that they're letting go of their religion. They don't want to be Christians, Ak. They drink, they smoke, they eat pork, they have boyfriends and girlfriends. It's just Western, innit? I'm not saying that what you're doing is wrong. Cool. Me, my religion, you, yours. That's fine. I need to better myself. I'm not trying to change other people. I'm working on myself, as a Muslim should. But if you guys are not cleaning the floor, don't blame me for going and getting a mop. Okay, because as a Muslim, and we're doing you guys a favor, these buildings in the UK, these beautiful churches, we're upholding them. We're not changing them. We're not knocking them down. We're just polishing the walls. No,
Yeah.
and so yeah, yeah, it's mad, bro.
And that's the funny thing about it too is so there's this huge misconception amongst non-Muslims, and a lot of that is due to a lack of education, which is one of the reasons why we started the Daily Rumble is to educate people because there's not enough solid information out there. Islam and Christianity worship the same God. The only difference is in Protestant Christianity, that we know today, they claim that there's three in one and Jesus is a part of God and all of that. Well, if you actually do your research, you would find out that that whole three in one Trinity came about from the Council of Nicaea, which was ordered by the Roman Emperor Constantine, not to appease God or to appease Christianity, but to appease his Roman Empire, who were pagans, and they could not accept the singular God of the Jews, which is basically what he had adopted. So he orders the Council of Nicaea to take Roman scholars of paganism and Christian scholars, locks them in a castle, and says, basically, you're not coming out until you come up with a theology that appeases both Rome and my new God. And so they created the Trinity 325 years after Jesus. There's no mention of a Trinity prior to that. And Paul, who was Saul, a persecutor of Christians, a guy who murdered hundreds of Christians, is suddenly now a saint. And so
Wow.
his writings supersede everything that Jesus ever said. In fact, I like to say that Christians today don't worship Jesus, they worship Paul.
Yeah,
They just call Paul
exactly.
Jesus.
And who on earth is Paul, for God's sakes? Like, I watched a video recently of a very proud Jewish family that have an Instagram page. And he had this book and he was telling his wife, no, he had a prayer mat, a Jewish prayer mat. And his wife said to him, "What is that? Oh my God, what is that? Is that what I think it is?" And he was like, "Yes, this is a prayer mat." She was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "Don't you know that when we pray, we are meant to recite, bow, prostrate, rise, recite, bow, prostrate?" She said, "What, where you, what, like Muslims?" And he's like, "Yes. But one of our rabbis a long time ago made it, he forbade us from praying this way." She said, "Why?" He said, "Because it imitates other idol worshipping religions. It imitates Islam. So our rabbis have told us we are not to pray in this manner until our Messiah arrives. And then when he gets rid of the Muslims, we will then return to praying like the Muslims." The Christians also act, as you know better than me. The Christians are meant to pray like us. They're meant to bow, prostrate,
They
rise.
used to.
They used to. So
The
it
early
doesn't.
day Christians would spend hours in prostrations. The early day monks would go into seclusion and they would prostrate with their head on the floor, praying to God for hours at a time. And now, like in the old, first of all, there was no such thing as a physical church in Christianity for the first few hundred years until the Roman Empire took over, and then they canonized, basically building these buildings and calling them churches. But in the early Christian theology, they didn't believe in a physical building of the church. They believed the church were the followers, right? So the believers in God, in the Messiah Jesus, that was the church. And so the whole world was their prayer mat. Just like in Islam, where it says the whole world is a place of prostration for you. So any clean part of the earth, like I live out on a ranch. I could walk out. I have clean dirt everywhere. I could just bow down and prostrate because that's my masjid. Now, having an actual formal place where everybody can gather, that is a really good thing. The problem with Christians is they made that the only thing, right? Whereas in Islam, that is the place where you go for your congregational prayers, whether it's all 5 daily prayers or some Muslims only go to Jummah prayer. Unfortunately, some Muslims only go to Eid prayer, which I really strongly recommend you not do that. At least start going to the Jummah prayers. It's mandatory upon you, brother. But the whole earth is a masjid for Muslims. So everywhere that a Muslim goes is a place of prostration. So the fact that Muslims are taking over churches, we're not taking them over. We're simply just adding to the beauty of them, because a church essentially worships the same God. It worships Elohim. It worships Allah,
Yes, and
right? The one and only God.
Christian
And the
Arabs
only
are
thing
not.
the Muslims are doing in those churches is they're taking the idols out of the church, which
Yeah.
aren't supposed to be there. If you read the Old Testament, it says, "Thou shalt have no idols before me, no gods before me." So no statues, no pictures, no golden calves, any of that are permitted in the church.
Actually,
And so that's all the Muslims are doing. They're just taking the idols out and then they're worshiping it because Muslims also believe in Jesus.
Exactly.
So it's a big education thing. I think, with me, alhamdulillah, I've been a Muslim for 20, I want to get the number right. Today's 2026, 25 years. I've been a
Wow.
Muslim for 25 years.
So,
For me, one thing that I've realized the most is that the everyday it seems to be particularly with people of European descent. Whether it's in Europe, I think in Europe you're a little bit more cultured and a little bit better read as a European society, but in the United States, it's absolutely horrible.
what
The
do you mean?
lack of education of other
Wow.
cultures and religions, languages.
No,
I
no, no,
think we're
don't
the
get it twisted, Ak. People are walking around in the superstores picking up halal meat, going, "Oh my God, they're trying to kill us. They're selling us halal meat." No, no, seriously. Somebody picked up a bottle of water and said, "Oh my God, this water's halal. What are they trying to do to us?"
yeah.
Bro, stupidity is a disease widespread.
Because it's weird. Like if you go to Asia, like everybody in Asia seems to know a lot about Islam, even if they're not Muslims, right?
Listen, when I went to school here, Afi, I was taught about Henry VIII and how he so pleasantly beheaded all 8 of his wives. They never taught me nothing about Islam. It's not necessarily the people's fault. All we're taught is that which is a lie. We're not taught the benefit or the goodness or the beauty of it at all. It's like imagine you grew up in a cave. I can't blame you for never watching a television. If I introduced a television to you and you ran for your life and said, "What is this evil magic?" I couldn't then say you're an idiot. So you've never seen a TV. So that's why I'm so passionate about us being the example of Muslims, a good example.
Yeah, and I mean, like, so for example, I had another brother on. His name is Kawa, and he's from Afghanistan. He immigrated to the United States when he was about 6 or 7 years old. Became a U.S. citizen, joined the army, became an army ranger, so special forces, elite special forces, and he is very pro-American, very pro-military, very conservative, very Muslim, right? And that's what a lot of people don't understand. Like, we love our country, right? You love England. You're English. I love America. I'm America. I was born here. This is all I've ever known. I've been to other countries. I've gotten to experience other cultures, which is part of reason why I was able to open up my eyes and heart to the religion of Islam is because I was better educated in multiculturalism where I grew up in California than a lot of people than maybe like Texas or Alabama or Mississippi where they're in a bubble and they don't know anything other than being a hillbilly and being uneducated, right? I grew up around a lot of African Americans. I grew up around Muslims. I grew up around Southeast Asians. Like I grew up around Asians, Chinese. We have Little Chinatown where I grew up. So because of that experience growing up, when Islam finally came to me, I was able to see it right away, and my mind was already open. I had no barriers, no preconceived notions at all whatsoever because I knew Muslims. I grew up around Muslims, and they were my friends. We played football together. I mean, I was a kid at that time, so I didn't like look into religion. But when I started looking into it, I already had that basis of knowledge that Muslims are not the boogeyman because I knew them. I grew up with them. I played football with them.
Yeah.
A really good friend of mine from the Marines gave me a Quran because he had converted in the Gulf War as a Marine. And when he came back, we were sitting down, we were talking about some stuff, and I started asking him questions about Islam, like, why did you become a Muslim? He's white hair, blonde, blue-eyed guy. Why did you become a Muslim? And he started telling me, and he was like, you know what? I can't explain this. Here. And he just handed me an English translation of the Quran. I started reading it. I got to halfway through Surat al-Baqarah, and I was like, oh my God, I'm a Muslim. Like, this
Wow.
is everything I believe in.
I don't
This
know.
is everything I've been believing in my entire life. I just didn't have a religion or I don't even like a system. I didn't have a system to put everything into place, right? And I'm a very disciplined oriented person. I went to military school when I was 12 years old, right? So military is in my family, it's in my blood. I need discipline. And so the discipline of Islam took all of my beliefs and it just put it in this system. So every single day I have a regiment that I get to keep my life balanced and easy, and I don't have to think about anything, right? Everything's laid out for me. Being a husband, being a father, being a neighbor, being a leader, being
Yeah.
a father-in-law, like my daughter just got married, right? And so being a father-in-law, how do I deal with my son-in-law? Then my youngest son, he just got married. So now I'm a father-in-law to a daughter-in-law. And you know, how do we bring her into the family and treat her and make sure that she feels loved and appreciated? All of these things are laid out in the religion of Islam. In Christianity, it's not. In Christianity, you have to search and you have to find and you have to interpret and you have to, you know, even like make up your own reason for doing something because it's not really codified as to how to be a Christian. And so when I talk to a lot of Christians, one of the things that they always say is, you know, if I was ever to leave Christianity, I would become a Muslim because of your guys' discipline. And I'm like, well, why don't you just come now? Because you're undisciplined now. Like you were talking about the pornography, the drinking, the clubbing, all of these things that are detrimental to you, short term and long term. How many STDs could be prevented if people just stopped having sex with random people? Like the whole epidemic of AIDS would not exist if people didn't just have random sex with random people, right?
You're not thinking of
But
that
in
far.
Christianity, that's okay because Jesus died for your sins, so you really don't have to do anything. Just live your life, enjoy. You only get to live once. Get out there, spread your seed, have some fun, experiment, all of that. That and I hear this from parents telling their kids that don't get married. Go out there and experiment. Make sure have some fun, live your life.
Yeah, I just before I got married, I was hearing the same thing. I'm big 30 act, big 30 years old, and my mom still saying, not now that I'm married with kids, but before my mom was saying, you know, don't settle down, don't tie yourself down. You're still young, enjoy yourself.
Yeah. And it's completely detrimental to entire societies, and this is how societies break down, right? And this is part like you were talking about how these corporate elites, most of them have ties, if not all, to Zionism. They want the porn industry. They want the alcohol industry. I was in an argument with somebody the other day, like, why are we attacking Venezuela? Because we got to stop drugs. Okay, well, Venezuela sends 90% of its cocaine to Europe, not the United States. So only 10% of its cocaine comes to the United States. And cocaine makes up the least amount of deaths. Fentanyl kills the most people in the United States. That comes from Mexico, but we're not attacking them. And then let's just take all of the drug deaths in the United States is approximately 120,000 per year, which is an extraordinarily high number and it's horrible and we need to end it. However, do you know how many people die from overdosing in alcohol every single year in the United States? 190,000. So why aren't we kidnapping the CEOs of Hennessy and Jack Daniels and tequila and all that? Why aren't we
No,
sending
don't
in the
agree.
special forces to get those guys?
Because the guy with the gun is at your doorstep. He's not in Venezuela. What a load of nonsense. That's just an excuse to go there and do whatever crime they've got to do, whatever they want to steal. They need a reason to go there. The drugs are here in our pharmacies, for God's sakes. Like, who's paying 25 pence for paracetamol? And they're telling you it's good for you. It's killing you. It's in your tap water. Like, they're killing us from the inside. And they're, like, for example, in the UK, we have a drug called I think it's called Spice. It's
Yeah,
a
yeah, I've heard of that.
legal cannabis, bro. You can purchase it in a newsagent, a sweet shop. You know, uncle there. He's got his alcohol behind him. He's got his marijuana grinder, his Rizzler there on the shop counter, and then he's got Spice. He's got a government-made drug. Okay, and this drug is worse than crack. When people smoke it, they become absolute zombies. They can break their own leg and they will not be aware of the pain they should be feeling. So even if they stop bringing cocaine here from wherever, they will give you something else. They want problems here. They want sick people so the medical system and the hospitals can continue making money. You know, they want crime so the lawyers can keep their jobs, so the prisons can stay open. So they've got reasons to put other sanctions on us and control us and implement fear. You know, they do it all the time. Like in the UK, a couple years ago, we had mad cow's disease. Everybody ran and started buying chickens. And then they came around and they said, oh, there's a chicken disease. Everybody stopped buying chicken and started buying lamb. You know, they control us. If they want money to go here, they put a big bit of water and we're little ants and we're running away from the water. You're going to drown, you're going to drown until they push us in the corner they want us. You know, it's like,
You know, and it's funny because you see the people that fight back against Islam saying, "How dare you try to take away my alcohol? How dare you try to take away my pork?" Pork is a disgusting meat to begin with. I remember, like, I was doing a drywall job with my dad. I was about 14 at the time in Modesto, California. And before we even got off of the highway, you could smell that pork factory, the slaughterhouse. It was so disgusting. And then we had to work there and do some drywall for a couple of days. And it was just so disgusting. The whole plant was just disgusting. And I won't get into the graphic detail because it'll literally make people sick. But what I saw there, I wasn't even a Muslim yet. I stopped eating pork after that. I would
I mean, they
never
eat
touch
their own
pork after that.
feces. Like the mother pig literally defecating while her baby pigs are there with their mouths open, catching the poo in their mouths. Like it, you wouldn't eat it even if Islam told you not to. If you saw it, you'd think, oh, so you are what you eat. This animal is made of poo. That's what's inside it, right?
You know, I had a debate with my father about 15 years ago over the phone. He lives in Costa Rica now and is a Costa Rican citizen now. And he was debating with me about 'cause he's very Christian. He was debating with me about being a Muslim. And he was like, "Well, how do you feel about these Muslim taxi drivers in New York refusing to give people taxi rides if they're coming out of a liquor store? That's just un-American." And so I told him, I said, "Dad, you're not even American anymore. You left. Why do you care? You left because you couldn't stand the debauchery in the United States. You yourself suffered from that debauchery for many years, so you fled this country. You married a Costa Rican woman because she's traditional, and you fled this country because you yourself don't drink because you cannot handle it if you do. You know it's a poison and you don't want to be around anybody who does, so you move to the middle of the Costa Rican jungle to get away from it, and you're upset that somebody is trying to do something to stop somebody from destroying their lives. Like, if it had been a Christian taxi driver, would you say the same thing? No. It's only because it's a Muslim taxi driver doing it that you have a problem with it, and that doesn't make any sense. And you're better than that, Dad. I know you're not a hypocrite, so don't act like one, because you know if it was a Christian, you wouldn't be saying that. And you know that alcohol is a poison. Alcohol destroys millions of people's lives every single year. And yeah, obviously he had no answer for that. He was like, "Yeah, I don't know. I have to think about it."
It's your dad, man. Maybe we should talk to our moms because your dad sounds very similar to my dad. Except for my dad didn't move to Costa Rica, moved to Cyprus, but huge Islamophobe, doesn't even want to begin to try and understand Islam, you know, completely against it. And I think it's out of fear because he doesn't want to change his way of life. You know, he's a very heavy drinker, my father. And the minute you say to him, alcohol is this and that, he just like, get away from me. I'm not ready to put my drink down. I'm not ready to stop seeing multiple women. No, so I think they're just afraid of the change. But deep down, you'd have to be a very stubborn person to not accept that alcohol is the negative outweighs the positive. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, and like, when it comes to parents, it's very difficult, like, because you have to play this balance. For me, alhamdulillah, my mom, before she passed away, actually accepted Islam. And the reason why is I was a very wild teenager, very wild young man. And me and my mom didn't get along very well because of that. Like, she tried to raise me better than that, and I just went off on a tangent for a little while when I became a teenager. And after I accepted Islam, I remember, like, it was probably about 6 months into me being a Muslim, and I was talking to my mom on the phone. I was living quite a ways away from her, and she said, "Who are you?" I was like, Mom, what do you mean? It's me." She's like, "No, no, 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 no. Like, my son is loud, he's arrogant, he's argumentative. Like, this person I'm talking to on the phone is completely different. Who are you?" And I was like, Mom, I've been telling you, like, I became a Muslim. Like, I have the discipline and understanding of how to implement that now. And one of the premises of our religion is that heaven lies beneath the feet of the mother. So I can't argue with you anymore. I can't debate with you. I can't raise my voice. I can't do any of those things because I want to go to heaven. And if I do that, I won't. And she was like, "Okay, send me your Quran. Like, bring me a Quran and I'll check it out." And she
Wow.
did. And yeah, alhamdulillah, she became a Muslim. And then it was written for her about a year later. She returned to Allah as a Muslim.
So Allah was waiting for her to take that shahada, for He forgives her for her sins, puts her in a better place where now she really sees you for what you are from the barzakh. You know, the angel, she's constantly asking, "What is my son doing? Is he praying?" And the angel was saying, "Yes, he's praying, speaking for truth. Like God knows best what they're saying, Allahu Alam." But wow, man, you broke generational chains, and you even went back and broke the chains from before you, and may Allah accept it from you and be pleased with you. Something very similar happened with my mother. She's still here, mashallah, but she sees the change in me and she is looking into Islam and watching like the starting off with the Mufti Menk videos, you know. But sees how I treat her. I don't argue with her anymore. I don't I don't I don't I used to steal from her when I was 15 and now I won't let her pay for a thing, you know? And I speak to her gently, you know, and I make her tea before I even consider making myself a drink, you know, and it's just I love you, man. I don't know what to say to you, but you've really been through a lot with that, and I pray that Allah always comforts your heart and stays close to you. You know, for Allah is
And I
close.
would say the same thing, like, with your dad and anybody that's watching, if you're a Muslim and revert and you're dealing with your parents, I've seen it time and time again. Even a really, really good friend of mine who's Bosnian. Now, Bosnian Muslims, they have some issues. One of the thing is they do have a prevalence for alcoholism within the Muslim community. And his dad was a full-blown alcoholic. He only went to Eid prayers, never went to even Juma prayers for his entire upbringing, right? He was in the genocide against the Bosnians. He went through a lot and he had that PTSD from the war and he just took to alcohol to solve it. But say anything about Islam, disrespect a Muslim, you would see his dad just go full-blown soldier on you, right? So he had the love in his heart, but he had the sickness of the disease of alcoholism. So he asked me for advice, and this was years ago. He asked me for advice, like, how do I deal with my dad with his alcoholism? And I was like, brother, just be a good son. Be a good son and continue to remind him of the deen and continue to encourage him to overcome his addiction to the alcohol. They both moved back to Bosnia. Father has completely given up alcohol, prays 5 times a day, goes to Juma, great Muslim now, right?
Bro, nobody was ever bullied into righteousness.
Yeah. So it's definitely one of those situations, even with our fathers. Like my father's still not a Muslim, and you just have to continue to try and just be there for him. In fact, I would even say don't even say that your father's an Islamophobe because now you're setting up a negative, right? So instead of doing that, maybe say, my father is still uninformed as of Islam right now, right?
I appreciate.
Because at the end of the day, if you start out with a negative, you're going to end up with a negative. But if you start out with a positive, which is he's uninformed, which means now you have an opportunity to inform, now you end up with a positive at the end of the end of the conversation. Is the advice that I give a lot of people, especially in regards to their parents. My grandmother, for example, is staunch Pentecostal Christian, will not even consider reading the Quran. But every single time I still talk to her, I still say, "Hey, Nana, just want you to know I love you. Do you need anything? Do you need me to come up there?" And she lives 2 states away. Like, if I need to come up there, I'll go up there if she needs some work on the house or whatever, because she's really old now. And then I always just say, if you're just wondering why I'm so helpful, remember it's because I'm a Muslim. And if you ever want to talk about Islam, I'm here to talk about it with you and educate you and maybe have a conversation about it. right? And I can show you some things in the Bible that point to it because I know you love the Bible. And she still says no, very politely. Nope, I'm happy. I'll love Jesus until I die. And I'm like, yeah, I love Jesus till I die too, you know?
Yes, well,
So, alhamdulillah, just be patient with them. May Allah bring both of your parents to the deen, inshallah, because it's a tremendous feeling for a son to be the vessel of Islam to his parent. Like, there's no better feeling in the world. When my mom made shahada with me, it was like the highlight of my life, you know? So, inshallah. And everybody that's watching, the same thing. If you want to learn about Islam, man, I totally encourage you go and check out Kanan. I'll drop all of his social medias in the description of this one. He has some fantastic poetry, some fantastic knowledge that he puts out there. Brother, I want to thank you so much for being here today, taking the time all the way from London. We had a little difficulties with the technology to get it to work, but we got it to work. Alhamdulillah. I'm super happy about that. Just love your work, man. Keep going and keep shining the light of Islam, brother.
Jazakallah khairan. Allah bless you. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to sit with you, bro.
Alhamdulillah. All right, guys, you know what to do. Like, follow, comment, everything down below. We'll see you guys in the next podcast.